All right, we're back, and it's COMP1073, and it's week 8, part 3 of our broadcast. We just finished doing this little app, and the little app that it looks like is just a very simple thing we've injected into the paragraph, right? But we've done this, done all of this, right, inside, just to show you, right, everything inside of our code, which doesn't make any sense, right? Normally, we wouldn't do it like that. Normally, if I looked at my code, all this stuff would come from somewhere else, right? All this stuff. Now, here's one thing you cannot do. JavaScript objects can have functions like this embedded into them, which are called methods. JavaScript object notation, JSON, right, cannot have methods. That's one thing they do not have. You have arrays. You can have other objects, but you can't have methods. It's undoable. Okay, and again, to check that, if I was going to check to see if this is proper JavaScript object notation, there's a website you can go to start checking it. We're going to start doing it. We're going to start like this with JSON. Okay, so I'm going to go to this new website, and I'm going to show you where this is. We're going to go to this website that says JSON lint. It's a JSON lint website, so it's jasonlint.com. Let's go there. And what jasonlint.com does is it validates if it's proper JSON. Right? Remember, this isn't JSON, so it should error out. It's JavaScript objects. It's different than JavaScript object notation. So let's take this whole thing, copy it, and put it into the JSON lint. And if I click validate, it's going to say, meh, it's not cool. And it tells me what's wrong. Error, parse error on line 1. Var person, expecting string, number, null, true, false, and blah, 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 but not person. Okay, so JavaScript object notation, so JSON, that's what it's called, does not include a variable. Let's get rid of that. So I'm going to get rid of this piece. That's one piece to it. Okay, cool. Let's try it again. Let's validate again. Okay, cool. It says age is undefined. Okay, cool. It says error, parse error on line 2. It says error, parse error on line 2, age undefined, expecting string, number, null, true, false. So undefined, that doesn't work. Null, though, is okay. So put null. Right? So null is okay. And then let's validate it again. And it goes to line 13 now. It says, whoa, error, line 13. Expecting string, number, null, true, or false. We got something else because we can't have functions. We can't have functions inside JavaScript object notation. JavaScript object notation only has data. It doesn't have methods. So this is gone. Right? All right, now let's see if this is correct. Validate. JavaScript object notation doesn't take this kind of comment. All right, let's get rid of this comment. Good. Let's validate it one more time. Validate. I have this semicolon. JavaScript object notation doesn't need a semicolon at the end. Right? And let's try one more time. Yay, we're green. This is valid JavaScript object notation. To know the difference, I want you to think of it like this. JavaScript object notation, so that's JSON, right, is a data format, is a way of us expressing data. It is not JavaScript. It's just a data format. It's a way of us describing properties and so on of data. That's what we're doing here, okay? So this is the proper format that we need to put it in. This is one website that we can use to do this, called jasonlint.com, if you want to verify that your JSON is correct when you create your JSON files. A really good one as well that I like a lot, I bookmarked this one, is also something called JSON Editor Online. This is kind of cool too. This is a little different though. It gives you an example of a JSON object here. Take a look on the right side, right? So it actually shows you what the objects look like, right? And let's copy ours in there so we can see what the difference is. I'm going to take this piece here, and copy it into this JSON Editor Online, right? And paste it in there, and then click this arrow, right? Now it does, what it gives me is what the data looks like. Notice how I have this down arrow. This is what it would look like on the console, right? And inside family names, I see that it's an array of 4 elements, 0, 1, 2, 3. This is a great way of visualizing what it looks like. one really cool thing about this editor, you can add stuff here and populate it, and it'll show you here. And you can add stuff here and populate it, and it'll show you over here, right? Which is kind of cool. So I can add what I want over here, and it'll change what it looks like over here, right? So how do I do that? So if I go like enter, and I do enter, this is entering into this particular field. But if I want to enter, add another value, look what it says here. It says I can move values around. So let's say I want to move Alexander to the second position. I can kind of do one of these. I can say, well, I want Alexander to be there, and I want to change this around, and I can just go back. Now Alexander switched around. So I can do my manipulation here for my data, and I can move things around the way I want. Okay? Just drag and drop these things here, right? That's one thing I can do. So I can do, if you notice, if I hover over, it says expand all fields. I can also collapse all fields. Here's collapse all fields. That thing I can do, expand or collapse. Notice on the right here, it says new, right? This opens up a new empty document. That's not what I want, right? New empty document is not what I want. There's also this colon, right? This is between the two things. So I want to add some more fields in here. By the way, I can do the same thing. I can look at it compressed. This is what it would look like compressed. And this is what it would look like expanded. Okay? If I want to add a new field over here, let's say another family member, I can add another one, like Dennis, right? As an example. And then when I do that, I kind of populate it across. I can see that Dennis is added in here now. And if I want to move Alexander back down to the bottom, right? And I want to do this by age. So let's say I go Dennis, and then, the next oldest one is Dino. Mobile Harrison would be first, right? As an example, I'm organizing this around how it should be. And if I want to reorganize this stuff over here, I can populate it back here, and it populates it nicely. This verifies JSON, but also allows you to manipulate it nicely. Right, so kind of a neat little tool that you can use online. I like using these tools to validate my JSON, right? So before I kind of populate my code. So let's take this, here's my new family, and copy it. And I'm going to go back to VS Code, right, and create another file, which I'm going to access later on. I may not get to it today, right? For now, what I want to do, under my project, I want to add a new file, and I want to call this, as an example, my person.txt, right? So person, lowercase, .text. And I'm going to paste the JSON in there. There's JSON, right? Save it. So I got my person text file, and I got this stuff. Okay, all I've done is copy the JSON. Now notice I do not have a method at all, right? I don't have a method for this thing. And if I go back to JavaScript, right, I don't need any of this anymore. Let's get rid of even my method for now. We'll come back to the method. How do I add a method later on? But for now, all I want to do is declare an object, as an example, an empty object, right? But I want to kill all this stuff. So we'll kill all this stuff. Right? And I want to declare an empty object. Here we are. Here's my empty object, right? And what I want to do is, I'm never going to have this say hello method right now, so let's just get rid of it, because I don't have an else if, right? So I don't have an else if method, right? All I have is this family name stuff that I'm going to go through. I'm looping through my person, and I'm trying to see my family names. Right now, there's nothing in my person object. I got to get my person object. I got to fill my person object up with stuff that I get from my XHR request. Remember, we talked about this. I got to use something called an XHR request, like I have in my PowerPoint presentation. I need to create a new object, which is an XHR object, an XML HTTP request that I got to make for the server. And by the way, I can't run Ajax without a server, right? So that means I can run this from Azure, right? But I can't run this from my file, right? So in order for me to run this, I got to run that HTTP server here to make it work. So I'm going to just go HTTP-server, just to run a little server, right, to test it. And I'm going to go back to my server here. So instead of it being file, I'm just going to go to localhost 8080, which is going to be the same thing for now, right? Notice how localhost 8080 hasn't changed anything, right? Hasn't changed anything. Because if I go back to my code, my website here, so go back to my website and refresh, I'm going to get nothing because I don't have any data. I haven't shared any data yet. I need to create a valid XHR request. I only have 5 minutes to do this thing. So don't worry if you don't get this piece, because we're going to do it again next week. Okay? So if I go back here, I got to declare this new object here. So I'm going to say var XHR. We can also call this request. I like having just call it what it is. This is a request to the server, right? Is equal to a new XHR request, HTTP request, right? So what that does is it sets up this one here. It creates a new requester object. This is what this does. Create, or instantiate actually is what it is. Instantiate new actually, we'll just put XHR to make it clear. That's one piece. And if you look at the PowerPoint, you follow the PowerPoint, it tells you the next step to do. So here they check to see if HTTP request is supported. Now we know our browser supports this. We're not going to do that piece. We'll put that in next week. All right. Then what I want to do is, when I get my XHR request, right, I want to open the request. So let's go back to the next file. So I'm just looking right here. Notice here's just an example JSON object that they have here in the PowerPoint. All right, so I go back down to the code. I have my request, and now what I want to do is I want to do this XHR or request.open. I'm going to use the get method, right? The get method to look at this file that's inside my folder, right? Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to go back to here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to say request.open, right? And inside there, I'm going to use the get method. Look, it gives me code hinting here. Get. And then the URL that I'm looking at, this is where my file is. So this is person.txt, because this is in the same folder as my my file. Now I got to be very careful because I want to go. It's not inside my scripts folder, right? So it would be pointing it to my scripts folder. It's got to go up one, as an example, and I want to look at my person.txt, right? Because up one means I'm going to go up a level to the same level, my root level, and then person.txt, right? All right, so that's what I'm opening, and let's put true for, if it's is it asynchronous or not? We're going to make it true. It's asynchronous. All right, cool. And the next piece is once we've got it. Again, there's three options to the argument. One is the method, the other one is the file, and the third thing is the Boolean flag that's asynchronous or not. And then we put that in there. Let me just go back down to the code so we can get this done, right? Okay, once we get the data, right, my request open, this var request is equal to this, right? Well, I can send my data back. I can send my data if I want to, or nothing. No, I can send nothing back. And my request would actually complete my request. So I open it up, my file. Here's my request has the data, my HTTP request, right? And let's just do this. Let me say request.send, right? So that's the first thing. Just open and send my request. Okay. And if I was to output to the console what the request is, what is this requester object? So I'll say request. And I look at my local host, 8080, refresh, and I go back to my inspector, I can see here that in the console I get this XML HTTP request. That's the object that I'm getting back. Notice that I'm getting the whole thing. Take a look. I got my response, and I also got my response text, and it gives me everything from my file. I actually read my file. Here it is. So it's inside of my request object. So what do I want to do? I want to make it so that my request object, I want to assign the text from my request object to my person object. Because I've got a person object right here. Here it is. I've got my request object right here, which contains everything. And now what I want to do is I want to do something like this. I want to say person is equal to request, if I can type dot, right? And if you notice, it's the what was I listening for? Look at the response text. That's the response text that I want, right? But look what the word says, response text, right? So this is good, but what I'm getting back is not what I'm really looking for. Let me just try this out here for a second. Person is equal to response text. If I refresh, I get this back, right? It's an object, right? Here's my person. And when I loop through, I still get nothing. Why? Because if I look and see what my person is now, if I go console.log, just to do a test person to see what it is, and if I refresh, right, I see that it's nothing. It's actually a string. That's what I'm getting back. That's line 18. Notice that there's nothing that's coming back. It's not an error. It's nothing. Why? Because I've got to parse my request. So I've got to do JSON.parse and my request response text, right? Oops. JSON.parse says take the text that I'm getting back from this object and make it so it's, or translate it into a JSON object. All right, let's see if that's true. Let's see if that works now. Fresh. Oh, what happened? Right, uncaught syntax error on, it says on 666. So it says anonymous function app.js 17 and 43. All right, 17. I got this anonymous option JSON.parse. It's not working. I'm trying to pass in the requester object, and I'm not getting anything back into my person. So how do I assign that thing? I like the idea behind what I'm doing, but I'm not getting it back the way I want. Let's look at the PowerPoint, what it tells me to do. All right, so I request open. I got this piece, right? I request send. I can send a request if I want. There's different kinds of ready states, eh? One of them is when I listen for ready state, I can listen for if it's a 0, a 1, or 2, a 3, or 4. What I really want to wait for is when my ready state is 4. When I've got my data, then I want to assign it, right? Otherwise, I may, because I'm doing an asynchronous call, I may have opened the file, and before I assign everything, it's empty, right? So I'm getting an error, right? So I want to wait for this request to complete, and I can do this event that I can create, which is the on ready state change event, right? And I can check if my request ready state is equal to 4. If it's true, then I can do something. So I can do this inside of an event. Because I'm doing things asynchronously, you never know when this is happening. Let's do that. So I'm going to go one of these. I'm going to say request, and instead of using the on ready state change like this, I don't like that. I want to use the more complex add event listener, right? Ready state change, which is more to my liking. Then I can make an anonymous function where I can run all my data in this add event listener. Okay, so that means I want to do all of this var blah 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 inside here, right? Inside here. I don't need this anymore. Right? But I want to do all of this, the defining of the variable and everything else, when I have my stuff, and only if my request state ready state is exactly equal to 4. If it's not exactly equal to 4, notice how it says that, exactly equal to 4, then that means it's not ready, right? Okay. And I want to grab all this information and put it inside. So I'm going to just take all of this code up to and including the first paragraph, cut it, and go inside my function here and paste. So I know it's fast. So this is what it is. So now inside my event listener, my ready state change, I'm waiting for the ready state change to be equal to 4, means that everything's ready, and then I want to assign everything. I want to JSON parse. Okay, this is still not complete, by the way, because if I go back to here and if I refresh, I got this object. Look at this object I got here. Object, age is equal to null, la la la, and hey, look what I got here. I got my stuff going on, right? I got all my data. So this, I've got my data populated from my file. This stuff is coming from my file now. Notice I also have Dennis and Alexander on the bottom, and everything is populated. So what have I done? In order for me to get my data here, to parse my file, I can't parse it until I've loaded it. And because it's asynchronous, it doesn't run in the order that you think it runs. You have to wait until the request is complete. So I open up my file, I get my data, and when it's complete, then I assign everything. If I do it the other way around, I'm going to get an error. And that's why I was getting it. So I have to do that inside of an event listener. Now there's two ways to see this. The most common way is that on-ready state change that you see here in the PowerPoint presentation, on-ready state change. But this is also very valid as well, this methodology here, where I want you to use this method. This is more control. Okay? So add event listener, ready state change. Questions around this? So what I've done here is I've taken a look at my person.txt right here, and I've done that by I've opened up a request, a GET request. There's two types of requests, GET and POST primarily, right? And then this is the path to my text file, and I'm telling it that my request is an asynchronous request. That means it's going to happen at the soonest opportunity. I'm going to wait with my add event listener. I'm going to wait until the ready state is 4, till it's complete, right? Remember going back to my PowerPoint presentation, there's different ready states. When the ready state is complete, that's what 4 means, right? Then, when it's complete, declare my person object, and then take my JSON object, parse the response text that I'm getting from my request after I read my file, and convert it from a string into a JSON object and assign it to my person. That's what I'm doing. And then that's where I'm outputting this person. I don't need this anymore. I can get rid of it because I know it's working. And I've got a file that reads my my person text file to get my data, and I'm populating it the exact same way. Once I haven't changed any of this. This is the exact same code, really, at the end of the day, right? And next week, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to add in a method on top of this person class. Because right now I've got a person class with the data, but I want to add in a method. How do I add in a method to this person class? I can do it after. Before I did it upon declaration, and I can add a method to the person class after, just the same way. So I can add a say hello. Like an example would be something like this. Person.sayHello, right, is equal to an anonymous function, right, where I have my output, right, plus equal to the person.name, right, person.name, and then says hello, right? It'll do that. I can create a say hello method. Now notice that I put that at the bottom, but I did it before the for in. Now I can go back and pull for that again, right? What happens if, and I'll show you what it does, if I do this kind of piece out here to my file, if I refresh, I'm going to get this function down here, right? Because my function is actually something that it's trying to output as a string. But I can't. I got to do this else if again. I got to say something like this. Else if, right? Else if my, I'm losing you guys. My key, it's okay. Don't worry about it if you don't get this. It'll be up on GitHub. My key is exactly equal to my say hello function, right? Then here's my say hello function. Say hello. Actually, I had says hello before, but it's okay. I'm going to just say person.say hello, right? Which is what I did before, exactly the same way I did it before. Let's see what I get now. But remember, I can't just add this say hello function in there. It's going to, when it adds it, it's going to add it to the output file, right? Add it to the output file. And I don't want to just do this, person says hello. I want to add some break and stuff like that. So I want to say kind of a break, right? Plus the person. And maybe some kind of horizontal rule before the break, you know, so maybe one of these. And we did this before, right? With a horizontal rule, and then add the person name at the end, right? And let's see what that does. Says hello, right? Same thing as this. We can add a method. Here's my method after I get my JSON data to the object, right? Because that's how fluid it is. Okay. That's kind of a preview of what we're going to do next week. We're going to do more of this work next week because you need to understand how to do it for your file, for your assignment number 3, right? So this is just a quick and dirty way of doing it for us. And we're going to do some more validation to make sure that we have access to the XML, HTTP request. If we don't have that, the XHR request, we have to test for that, especially if you're using Internet Explorer. We're going to do some backwards compatibility next week as well. Questions around this before I go? Lots of stuff here. I'm going to put this up to GitHub for you. Thank you very much, and see you next week.